Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream. It is the 23rd of September 2025. It is 8:30 here in the UK. Hello and welcome to everyone who's joining the stream. It's fantastic that you're joining us today. Skip. Hello Skip. Hello everyone. I'm firing Silverstein. Hope to have happy results. We do too as well, Skip. Is it the middle of the day for you? Thunderwood, hope you have a great evening. Yeah, Thunderwood Underwood came on earlier just before the stream to say, I'm out at the theatre this evening. Lucky me. So I'm saying hi and catching up later. So I hope Thunderwood Underwood, whatever you're going to see, you have a great time. Let's all support live theatre. I think we try and do that whenever we can. Hopefully Thunderwood Underwood will have a lovely evening this evening. EFO, hello from Argyll in very bonny Scotland. It's not raining. We always ask about the weather, don't we, EFO? How are you? Hope you're well. How's your weekend been? I hope the weekend has been good for you guys. Jerry Z, hello from West Georgia, USA. I'm Jerry. Hi, Jerry. Welcome on board. It is great to have you today on the live stream. I hope you're well. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you're joining us, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening, you're really welcome to join us today. This is a live stream for you guys. My name is Derek. I'm a glass artist, and I'm here to answer your questions and to share tips and tricks and to just talk about stained glass for the next hour. So any questions you have, just put them into the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Yehudith, hello, you are joining us this evening. Welcome, and it's fantastic you're here. I hope you had a good weekend and everything is ready to go for the next few weeks ahead. Great that you're with us. I know it's a little bit ahead. Your time is a couple of hours, I think 2 or 3 hours ahead of us. So thank you for staying around to join us on the live stream today. Schitterend, Eric Winter, I don't know what that is. Greetings from Netherlands. Hello, Eric Winker. Hello. It is welcome, and it's great to have you here today from Netherlands. I'm 1 month to go till October the 24th. Yeah. Hopefully, Yehudith is coming over for a masterclass, a 2-day masterclass. Really excited to see Yehudith at the masterclass. I had a masterclass this last weekend for 4 students, which was absolutely fantastic. We had a glass painting masterclass this weekend. So we went through all of the different tips and tricks and methods and materials and brushes and paints and all of the processes. It was just really nice group of people. And we also had some younger people with us today. So at the weekend, I should say, 2 students who were in their 20s. One had just finished art school and one was coming to stained glass from an entirely different discipline, just curious and interested to learn about stained glass. Both of them were absolutely fantastic. We had one student who had come over from LA, from the States, to join us, and we had a UK student as well. So it was just fabulous that everybody was joining us for the masterclass at the weekend. Really enjoy helping people to learn about stained glass, and it's just wonderful that people invest the time and the energy to kind of invest in themselves on coming on a course like this. It's just wonderful, really good. So we've got another masterclass happening this Friday and Saturday on enamel painting. So again, it's really exciting to be able to share new techniques with everyone on enamel painting. Lots of interest about the enamel painting course, which I'm still in the middle of filming. It does take a while. I say this every week, but it's true. I've been doing a lot of other work as well. And of course, I do run a professional stained glass studio as well as doing my courses and doing online filming for YouTube, etc. So it does take a little while to get that course together, but we are getting there. Today I had set aside the day to start writing a paper for a conference that I'm doing beginning of next month down at Canterbury. And I thought, right, I've got all of the information together, I've got all my photographs together, I've got all the background information. Today's the day that I'm going to sit down and start writing this paper. So I fired up my computer and my computer wouldn't connect to the internet. It was just like, what? Of all the days that I need to sit down and write this paper, because I've got to submit it by the end of the week, basically. Yeah, my Ethernet, which is like It's the way that I connect to the internet rather than through Wi-Fi. I have a cable that runs from my PC that I'm talking to you guys on now all the way over to my router. It's just like a solid cable. It's usually a very fast connection, but it had just stopped working altogether. So I spent the whole of the morning, rather than writing my paper for this conference, I spent the whole of the morning talking to tech, trying to get them to help me through this. It was really frustrating. And of course, I can't write what I needed to write without being able to get onto the internet. So I started using my phone to get onto the internet. I started sending it to my iPad. It's just like, I thought technology was meant to be easy. And eventually I switched the computer on and off several times. I switched the router off several times, and eventually it fired up again. So we're online tonight now. I'm hopefully talking to you guys. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. And it looks as if we've still got a connection to the internet. It's really weird. The trouble with modern technology is it's so specialized that you can't just kind of lift the bonnet and tinker with spanners and spray it with a bit of WD-40 and expect it to work. It's so specialized. You have to sort of get into a queue, a technical helpline queue, and then listen to that dreadful music while you're waiting, holding, and eventually to get in contact with somebody. It's just the modern world. It does require a lot of specialist help. And of course, when things go wrong, as they always do, inevitably go wrong, you can't really fix it yourself very easily. So I still don't know what happened to my computer this morning. I still don't know why it didn't get onto the internet. And I don't know why it fixed itself. I just kind of switched it on and off several times until eventually it decided it was going to work again. So yeah, we're here just now. Welcome to everyone. Mary says hi from Wiltshire, where it's been a sunny day. That's wonderful, Mary. Yeah, I've been indoors all day today. I haven't really looked out at the sun, but I'm glad it's been sunny for you. I hope you've had a great day so far. Julie Gritton says hello, everyone. Hi, Julie. Welcome on board. It is lovely, a channel member that you're here tonight, along with channel members EFO and Skip. Again, it's great that my channel members are supporting me, and it's welcome to all of you, one and all. Tegan says hello from Northern Carolina. Hi, Tegan. I hope you're well. How was your weekend? I hope you've had a good weekend and good Monday and Tuesday. I know it's hopefully still fairly early in the day for you guys in North Carolina. I'm so happy to be back after not being able to make the last few weeks. Well, Tegan, it's fantastic that you're joining us today. We have a group filled with fellow creatives around the world joining us to chat about stained glass. So listen, guys, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. I'm here to answer your questions in real time. I've got something to show you in a demonstration, which we'll do in a little while, but I do want to say hello to everybody, welcome everybody on board, and please feel free to ask any questions. This hour-long session is really here for you to answer your questions in real time. I know a lot of you are talking to me through the courses, through the online courses, and I'm helping people as they complete the courses. But you may just have a question that you want to ask. You may know nothing about stained glass at all and just be interested in learning about stained glass. So I'm here to answer your questions. EFO says, lucky you, Judith. Yeah, Judith is coming over to do a masterclass in October. Really looking forward to it. Tegan says, I got here an hour and a half ago not knowing the time had changed, and now my studio is quite a bit cleaner. Yeah, we have been experimenting, Tegan, with different times. So it looks like 8:30 is going to be the new time. I know we started telegraphing everybody that it was going to be a 7 o'clock kickoff every Tuesday here in the UK. But really, I was kind of feeling my way forward in terms of you guys, how many people wanted 7 o'clock start and how many people wanted 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So we did do a poll, and the kind of consensus was either 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So we started right down the middle and decided to start the live stream at 8:30. So hopefully you'll know next week, Tegan, that we will be starting at 8:30 here in the UK. It's UK time, 8:30. Thank you, EFO, says Judith. Maya O'Donnell says, hi, I'm a beginner here. Maya, hello and welcome. It is fantastic. Maya O'Donnell It's fantastic that you're joining us today. It's great that you're also a beginner. You're curious and interested to know about stained glass. You've come to the right place. Israel Franco, hello from Mexico. Israel Franco, hello back. How are you? I hope Mexico is good for you today. It's possibly still fairly early for you. I'm imagining you're behind us in time scales. Riding Forth Singing says hi from Canada. I do love that name, Ride Forth Singing. Hello, how are you? How's Canada? I was over in Canada many moons ago and absolutely loved Canada. I really could quite happily live in a place like Vancouver. I really enjoyed it. And the Rocky Mountains as well. And Toronto, went to Toronto as well, and Banff, and all up into the Rockies. And just the Canadian people are wonderful. The landscape is amazing. Great country. Yeah, so Ride Forth Singing. Whereabouts in Canada are you? Do let us know. Charlotte, evening all, says Charlotte from Bristol. Hi Charlotte, welcome on board. I hope you're well. How are you doing? I've been loving your posts on Facebook and Instagram, and I can see you doing lots of tests on glass painting. I love what you posted, by the way, this morning. You were doing paint samples and you were doing kind of little astringent spots of paint onto wet paint, and there was some lovely kind of very small patterns that you created. They look like the centers of sunflowers, you know, almost like seeds. How did you create that effect? I know how you created the kind of the larger droplets. You were possibly putting vinegar or maybe glass cleaner perhaps on there, but I saw those lovely kind of detailed little pieces in the wet paint. Do tell us, Charlotte, how you created that effect, because I saw it this morning and I thought that is amazing. I love that. I wasn't quite sure how you created it. Hello from London. May O'Donnell, hello from London. Hiya, it's great that you're joining us from London. Cindy Dawson, happy fall. Thanks for sharing. You're coming in loud and clear in Idaho. Malad, Idaho. Hey, hello Cindy. Thank you for joining us today. Aha, California, not Carolina, says Tegan. California. Did I say Carolina? I do apologize. Mixing rogue dove enamels while I'm watching for prepping for a project. Yeah, rogue enamels or dove enamels. I know they're called rogue enamels in Canada because they're from, I think your supplier is a Canadian supplier, and they're called rogue enamels. Here in the UK, it's dove, of course. What colors are you mixing? Ride Forth Singing. What are you mixing up today? Do tell us. We'd love to know. Nick Mims says hi Nick. Lovely that you're joining us today. Hello from France. Nick Mims, hello, welcome on board. It's great that you're joining us from France today. Joker Parker, he's got gloves on. Kids in the basement. I'm doing some glass painting in a little while, so we're wearing gloves. It's really funny about health and safety these days. We've got to be so careful, especially if you're doing teaching, to be on top of your game in terms of health and safety. So what we're recommending now, and we were mentioning it last weekend as well on the masterclass, is whenever we're working with paints, to wear gloves. Previously, well, when I'm working on my own, I have for the longest time just painted without gloves on, and most of the paints that we work with are lead free, but some of the paints do have lead in them, and for in an abundance of caution, we're now recommending that everybody wears gloves when they're doing painting, just to protect their hands and the skin from any long-term contact with, you know, paints and stains and enamels. As I say, not all of the paints and stains and enamels are lead based, but some of them still are, and I certainly use some of the paints that are lead based. So yeah, wearing gloves when I'm painting, and I certainly recommend to my students to wear gloves as well. Your hands do get a bit hot, there's no getting around that. Wearing face masks, etc., when you're creating dust, you know, it's just the way that we have to progress in terms of health and safety, looking after yourselves and making sure that we're giving out the best advice to everybody who's coming into the discipline for the first time, or using glass paints and enamels and stains. You know, protect ourselves and everything will be good. When you look after yourself and you protect yourself from breathing in dust, and you protect your skin from getting long-term contact with paints and stains and enamels, all is going to be fine. So Joker says he's got gloves on. Sorry, I just read that. Right, Forth Singing. Thank you, Derek. Yep, love my home. I'm in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta. Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. Oh, how wonderful. You love your home. I can completely understand why. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. It reminded me of Scotland on steroids. You know, the mountains, the incredible mountains, the Rocky Mountains up in Banff and all around that way was just amazing to behold. Amazing to behold. De Cabalende Glacier says hello from Netherlands. Glacier. I do apologize, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but hello to you in the Netherlands. Welcome, welcome. It's great that you're joining us today. Can Charlotte show this? Yeah, it would be wonderful to ask you, Yehudith. Can Charlotte show us how she does her lovely painted effects that you posted today on Instagram? Do tell us, Charlotte. Do tell us, even if it's just a little text in chat. EFO, what gloves do you use? Mine are always loose. Yeah, getting the right size gloves, EFO, is important. It depends on the size of your hands, but basically I use a powder-free vinyl glove or an, it's usually powder-free vinyl gloves that I use. But I mean, it's whatever is good for you. I mean, they come in lots of different varieties. I'd use these disposable ones rather than using the cloth ones, because the cloth ones do start to hold a lot of the dust after a period of time. But yeah, guys, welcome on board. Welcome to all of you. So yeah, I've spent today writing up this dissertation on conservation of stained glass and what to do with a lot of stained glass nowadays that is redundant in redundant churches. You know, churches aren't nearly as popular as they were back in, say, the Victorian era, when they were building lots of churches and filling them full of stained glass and people were going to church, you know, several times a week and twice on a Sunday. That is just not the case. We are sort of almost living in what you might call a post-Christian culture here in the UK now, where less than 1 million people go to church every Sunday. So a lot of churches are closing and the churches are consolidating. So what they're doing is they're closing parish churches down and maybe even selling the land off to developers. Developers are buying the churches and the churches may be full of stained glass. What to do with them? Quite often developers just want to get rid of the glass simply because they want to kind of convert the building into a gymnasium or flats or apartments. And sometimes the stained glass is not appropriate for them. And I have been called out in the past to pick stained glass out of rubbish skips, where developers, builders have basically knocked the stained glass out with hammers to get rid of it because they wanted to kind of build through this church and create new apartments. So I'm part of a group of people that conserve and look after and rescue stained glass. It's called the Stained Glass Repository, and it's part of the Worshipful Company of Glaziers down in London, and we rescue stained glass. So I'm giving a talk later next month at Canterbury Cathedral International Stained Glass Conference about the role of the Stained Glass Repository here in the UK. I'm chairman of that group. So I've been writing my paper for that today, and so I'm clearing my head of all that now to talk to you guys and to do a little demonstration for you as well. So HM Fan 2010 says, hi all, I'm busy doing chores around the house, but I'm listening as I work. Listening from Ohio, USA. HM Fan 2010, welcome. Don't work too hard and certainly don't put on that Hoover. You'll never be able to hear us over it. Jerry Z says, thank you for recommending The Art of Painting on Glass. It's helped deepen my understanding of the process. Yeah, Jerry, it is an amazing book. Albus Elskis. It's kind of the Bible of glass painting, stained glass painting. It is an absolutely brilliant book, and it's a few years old now, but it's still completely relevant to the world of glass painting, and everything that is in it is pretty much still up to date. We're working with an ancient technology, centuries old, and we're basically using the same materials and the same paints and pretty much the same brushes as we have done for the last few hundred years. So that book is an amazing book. You can still get it. It is still in print. And I'm glad it was useful for you, Jerry. I do recommend it to all of my students on a regular basis. There's a few books on my recommended reading list. If you attend my in-person courses, At the end of the course, you get course notes, which give you everything on the techniques and methods and the brushes and where to get hold of them and the different paints and the firing temperatures, plus a list of recommended reading. And that is top of the list, the art of painting on glass. So let's have a look at what we're going to be doing a demo of tonight. So something a little bit different. We're working with this, which is an image of, as you can see here, skeleton with flowers. I just pulled it out of a group of images that I use in my teaching classes because I wanted to play around with sgraffito tonight. I've been teaching sgraffito technique over the course of last weekend at the masterclass, and it's just a lovely technique to work with. So I thought, as well as answering your questions and talking with you guys in chat, I would just do a little bit of work here to recreate this design using sgraffito. So sgraffito, if you're not familiar, is a term which basically means to scratch away one color to reveal another color underneath. So in the Italian Renaissance, it was often used on wet plaster. So they would basically scratch out the wet plaster to reveal colors underneath or to make impressions into the plaster work. It's used in ceramics and pottery, and it also is used in stained glass. And it's used in stained glass to basically scratch away a layer of paint to reveal a color underneath. Now that color may be the color of the glass, or it may be stain, or it may be enamel, but basically you put a layer of paint, either black or brown, over the surface of the glass, let it dry, and then you start scratching out your image on top. So we're going to be working with this image here today, which is a skeleton with flowers. Yeah, I thought we'd do something different. Very often we're doing animals. If you follow me, you'll know that I do a lot of things like foxes and deer and rabbits and hens and all these kind of animals and pigs and all these kind of things and flowers. So I thought I'd do something slightly different. Yeah, there's flowers in this, but it's also a skull. So I love it. I love this kind of thing. So let's just work on this today. So as you can see, the image has been taped down onto our light table. So underneath the light table is some tracing paper, and underneath that is some black paint that has just been roughly painted onto the surface of the glass and allowed to dry. So that's dry. There's a little bit of a scratch here, but not to worry. So I'm basically lining everything up to just sit over my image, and I'm just going to begin to scratch through. Now, the reason I've got the white carbon paper down is because I just want to do a few basic outlines to give myself a position or a plan for where all my key images are. So the key images obviously are the skull, the eye sockets, the nose, you know, the position of the teeth, the jaw, and then also the position of some of the key flowers. I don't need to put absolutely every detail in just now, but I certainly need to put in some of the elements in order to then start the sgraffito process where I scratch out some of the images. So I'm just going to very gently using, can you see this? It is a porcupine quill. So we're just going to start scratching through our design, through our carbon paper as well, to create the outline of some of our images. So the porcupine quill isn't actually making a mark on the painted image, but it is transferring with the pressure that I'm applying, transferring the image onto a background here. Just taking my time doing some of the outline, not necessarily all of it, but just some of the flower images here. I'll fill in the rest by hand in a moment. So continuing down the skull, putting some of the elements in here. The outline of the socket, the eye socket. Down to the cheekbone. And again on the other side. Often the difficulty when you're just tracing through like this is remembering what you have actually traced and what you haven't. So try and be methodical in the way that you trace so that you don't leave any bits out. Coming around the jawline here. Paper does have a tendency to move, so I'm holding it in place as I work. Let's do some of the key teeth in here as well. Just going to check to make sure that it is actually registering. Yeah, there we are. You can see the image is beginning to register through. A little bit more of the flower here. So guys, don't forget to put any questions that you have on today's stream in the chat, and I will answer your questions as I'm doing the work here, because I like to be able to relate to you guys in real time as well as just doing demonstrations. I love to be able to kind of talk with you as well, and especially for those of you who are doing other things and listening to this as a podcast, all you're going to hear is me scratching away using the Sgraffito brush. So I'd love to be able to talk with you guys as well as I'm doing this. As you can see here, I'm just working my way around the flowers, the outline of the majority of flowers. Giving myself a basic plan to work to without going into too much detail. Right, final flower here, and then we'll lift up the design. I'm really just playing with ideas at the moment simply because I love the Sgraffito effect. It's easy to get it wrong. It's easy to kind of scratch out too much than you need. But the lovely thing is you can always paint over it. And if, for example, you've got an area of paint that you've scratched out where you didn't actually want to remove it, it's very easy to just repaint the area again, allow the paint to dry, and then re-scratch out what you need to scratch out. I don't think I've done the nose. Let me just have a check. Let's just get this nose in. Okay, so I think I've got most of my basic image in here. Yep, around about here needs to be done. Okay, so I think we're pretty good in terms of basic kind of like areas that I want to cover. So let's remove the design now and start working with the Sgraffito technique full speed ahead. Deb Watkins, hello Deb, hi from New Hampshire. Hi Deb, thanks for joining us today. We're doing a little painting demonstration tonight or today. Gabrielle Perez says hello from Mexico. Hello Gabriela, thank you for joining us. It's great that you're part of this wonderful creative community today. What was under the image on top of the glass? That was white carbon paper. So white carbon paper is a little hack that we use during our courses to trace our design image through. Yes, you can buy white carbon paper online, and it's a nice little hack which helps you kind of trace through, especially black images like this. Quite often when I'm doing Sgraffito work, I will basically do it freehand. But certainly when you're starting out, it's slightly daunting to scratch into black painted glass completely freehand. So using the carbon paper is a really good way to kind of center up your image. As you can see here, it's sort of centralized within the area that I'm working on. So we've got our design at the side here. Let's just start creating some more detailed work here. So there's another flower motif here. I'm doing most of this freehand now, as you can see. Just start filling in some of the background areas. Got lost here. What paper are you using to transfer the image? It is called white carbon paper. Basically, you can buy it online, and it's a little bit like normal carbon paper, but it's got like a waxy surface to the paper. So when you press through the paper onto the paint, it basically lifts off the paint. So if you look at the white carbon paper, you can see here it's actually lifted the paint off. So it's a really useful technique for tracing directly onto black paint. Gabriella, thank you. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, it's a really nice system to sort of reproduce designs with. So let me just start lightening up some of my teeth, my skeleton teeth here. I got a little puffer here to kind of remove some of the dust as we're working. The skeleton's got remarkably fine teeth. Not a single tooth missing, eh? Must have looked after the teeth when they were alive. Absolutely beautiful. They had a great dentist as well by the looks of it. Everything is lined up really nicely. Okay, let's go underneath now. The thing about Sgraffito is it's very, very relaxing, you know? Really relaxing to just kind of like take your time and work your way around the images, just creating some detail. It's easy to get it wrong. It's easy to kind of scratch out something that you didn't want to scratch out. But don't worry too much about it. It's really easy to rectify it. What I suggest you do when you're doing Sgraffito work is just to do the whole thing, kind of get the image, as much of the image completed as you can, and then make your corrections as and when you need to along the way. So guys, chat, tell me, have you tried Sgraffito yourselves? Have you worked with this technique? Is it something you'd be curious to learn? It's a really, the principle of Sgraffito work is really easy to understand. It's not a difficult or technically challenging way to paint, and you can get some great results pretty quickly by just persevering. And the more you kind of persevere with it, the more complicated the shapes can be, the more complicated the images can be that you're working with. Just getting more of those teeth in just now. So I can see immediately under the teeth there's quite a little light area. Get all these little bits back here. And again on the top section here, there's some lighter areas. There we go. What a lovely pair of gnashers, eh? Let's get those areas cleaned up a little bit more. So what does require a little bit of thinking ahead is to kind of remember that you're actually painting with or drawing with light. So instead of like a pencil or a pen where you're actually darkening areas down, you're literally using your pen to lighten areas. Which is a completely different way to work. Okay, let's carry on around here. Can you show me the carbon paper again? Yeah, sure. 1 second. So this is white carbon paper. There is a powdery side and there is a paper side to it. So you'll find these online. If you just go on to Amazon, for example, type in white carbon paper, you should be able to find it. It's not expensive. It should hopefully be readily available as well. Charlotte says, all my Lido ladies are made using Sgraffito. I'm much better at taking paint off than putting it on, but I'm getting better. Yeah, you're great at painting, Charlotte. You're absolutely great at painting. And yes, Charlotte uses Sgraffito all the time for her wonderful, wonderful Lido ladies and Lido lads or Lido men, where she creates these wonderful textured swimming suits and swimming hats with a variety of different patterns across the images. They're absolutely brilliant to behold. They're all done with Sgraffito. It's a strange kind of area here across the cheek, which looks like some kind of indentation. It must be something within the skull. I suppose it's your sinuses or something, I imagine, in that area there. So this can be one of several layers that you work on. So this is the first layer that I'm basically removing the highlights on. And if I fire this in the kiln and decide I want to create more shading on some areas, I can always add more shading back in. The idea is to try and take off sometimes more paint than you need, because you can always put the paint back on again. What you can't do is, once the paint has been fired in the kiln, you can't then remove any subsequent paint after that. So sometimes it's an idea to take off more paint than you need rather than less, because you can always add that paint back in again later. You can see this is beginning to come together a little bit. Like etching, says Yehudith. Yes, indeed, it is just like etching. Skip says, thanks for the white carbon hack. I've been struggling to for an easy image transfer. Yeah, white carbon hack is a great hack. That was recommended to me by a fellow glass artist some time ago. And there are various types of white carbon paper available on the market. Some of it's more expensive than others. There's a Japanese type of white carbon paper, which really is quite pricey. And that's what I first was recommended, but I have subsequently found a lot cheaper versions of the white paper available. So just do a little bit of research, have a look online. Places like Amazon are probably the best. I certainly find them to be one of the best places to find the types of paints and papers that you need. Let's just continue this a little bit longer. So I'm scratching larger areas with bigger gaps between each scratch to kind of infer some slight shadows. But again, it's quite casual. I'm not being too prescriptive in the way that I'm creating my highlights and lowlights. As I say, the thing to do with this type of work is to sometimes take out more paint than you need rather than less. Because when you, as I've said already, when you come to fire it in the kiln, you then cannot remove any more of the paint after it's been fired in the kiln. So it's better in a way to take off more paint rather than less, because you can always add the paint back in again later. Deegan says, Derek, is it worth trying to keep the little plastic tubes that the paintbrushes come with to protect them? Is it worth trying to keep the little plastic tubes, yeah, with the paintbrushes? I don't know. I mean, what would you use them for? I know what you mean. So when you buy a new paintbrush, the brush is protected by a little transparent tube at the end. They're really nice, and also once you take them off, you can never put them back on again. What would you use them for? I'm not quite sure what you would need to keep them for, Tegan, but do tell us in chat what you think you would use them for. They're nicely engineered, that's for sure. Let me just get this leaf in here. Julie says, would this be a good technique for using to show texture of fur? Yeah, absolutely. This is ready-made for creating fur effects. Absolutely. It's a lovely kind of intuitive way to kind of create fur. And as you can imagine, you can just simply scratch away to your heart's content, creating these little bursts of fur and animal fur across your image. Get this in here. I'm trying to leave some of the areas in shadow as well, but I've got this leaf coming across here which is highlighted. Getting rid of a lot of the paint here. A lot of this is lightened up across the forehead here, very light area here. So let's just remove a lot of the paint with little cross-hatching marks. Charlotte says, EFO, yes, my 5 minutes of fame. I had a great mentor. Charlotte, now I know you from TV. Love your lady, says EFO. Yeah, Charlotte was working with me on Making It Market. She was absolutely fantastic. As all of my wonderful students have been on the TV series Making It Market, everybody is really thrown themselves into the work and really enjoyed the whole process. It's always a challenge, isn't it? If you're starting a business and you're doing it on a television show, oh my goodness, what about pressure? That does always sound like quite a pressurized job to me as well. So they did really well to kind of put themselves in to the public domain like that, and create a new business from scratch, as the show is basically geared up towards helping people change their hobby into a full-time career. So Charlotte definitely was working as a glass artist before the show, and she had an established way of selling her work. She would go to her into Bristol and sell her work in the local markets, which was great. But she wanted to really take it a stage further, so she did this amazing transformation of using Lido ladies, because she is part of a swimming group in Bristol, and started creating these amazing Lido ladies in glass, and they've really taken off. They're really, really popular. So yeah, Charlotte is a good person to know, guys, in chat. If you want to make connections, I really encourage you all as part of this creative community to share connections together, because it's about building up the community, your community, as well as me talking with you guys sort of getting to know each other and building your own creative community connections as well. That's really what it's all about, because getting help from other people and talking about problems and issues can be really helpful. Because very often, if you're a creative and you're working and you're trying to make a living out of what you're doing, it can be quite a lonely experience. You know, you feel as if sometimes you're working in splendid isolation. So having others to talk with, other creatives who are on the same journey as you, can be a really useful thing to do. Okay, let's just work on this a little bit more. Down here, doing this jawline area. Okay, down to here. See if we can get this little jawline working here. Right Forth Singing says, I use tattoo needles and scalpels for my scratchboard art and use them also in glass graffito work. Yeah, I'm looking at getting some tattoo needles. You can buy them in, like, they have little groups of 3, 4, and 5 needles that you can buy. I was actually looking at them over the weekend that tattoo artists use for shading. So instead of just having a single needle, they've got like 3 or 4 together, which is a really nice way of creating sort of repeated pattern images. This is something that I often use here as well. You know what this is, guys, don't you? It's a knit comb. If you've ever had any kids, you'll know about knits, hair knits, and having to comb the kids' hair in order to get rid of the knits. So these knit combs are really useful because they're little parallel lined fine tooth combs. So if you wanted to create decorative effects, you can either use things like tattoo needles, or you can use knit combs, or you can just use single spike pieces like this to create images as well. So this is very therapeutic work. You're just kind of like going slowly working your way around each of these images, trying to create the illusion of shadows by doing wider gaps between each area of this graffito, just to kind of bring it into a little bit of shadow here. So let's get this image up here like this. Okay. Tegan says, for protecting the brush, I've found if I wet the brush a little, smooth the bristles to a tip, and I'm very careful, I can get the tube back on the brush for storage. Good for you. Yeah, I suppose you can. I mean, it is a good tip. You can actually buy almost like water soluble pastes, and I'm thinking of things like a very weak mixture of wallpaper paste, for example, that is water soluble. If you make it a really weak paste mixture, you can reshape your bristles you know, using the paste, and then if you want to put them back into the sleeve of your tube, you can, but generally speaking I don't. But certainly reshaping your the very fine bristle hair of your rigger brushes or your sable hair brushes is a good idea, because you don't want to splay apart. The worst thing is when you're storing your brushes, if inadvertently a student is not thinking too much, they can sometimes put the brushes back in the jar of water, and if you leave a brush in a jar of water for a period of time, it does distort the bristles, and the bristles end up having a bend in them, which is what you want to avoid if you possibly can. See how we're getting on with this. Let's just give him a little bit of a more intense, stronger chin, I think. Okay, I can see a little bit of light coming through on the inside of the sockets here, just a tiny little suggestion. So let's bring something into the flower area now. Maybe use a slightly thicker line to scratch out some of these details. Cincinnati Drew, that's a phenomenal idea. Such a spectacular craftsmanship. I love your work, Cincinnati. That's very kind of you to say that. Charlotte says, I use tattoo needles. Great for fine lines. It's good to vary the size of the lines to break it up and create depth. Absolutely. Yehudith says, I wet them and after getting the shape back, put the brushes upside down. Good idea. Good idea. Turning the brushes upside down so that the bristles face downwards. Sharpened chopsticks work too, says Skip. They certainly do. Can't wait to try this, Julie. You should. It is a really lovely and simple kind of process to work your way through. And it's a really rewarding way to work. Because at the end of the day as well, if you're not happy with any aspect of it, it's very easy to change it. It's very easy to paint over whatever it is that you're not happy with and re-scratch it out. It doesn't take an awful lot of time to repaint a piece of glass before you then scratch it out one more time. Sorry, my phone is busy pinging away as we're doing the live stream. I apologize about that. I should have turned my phone to silent. So what I may do before I put this into the kiln is just get a little bit of black paint on a very thin brush and just darken down some of the elements as well, because some of the elements that separate each of the shapes has been lost slightly during the scratching process. But all is not lost. That's the important thing to remember when you're doing this kind of work. All is not lost. If you have scratched out an area that you're not particularly happy with, you can always repaint back into that area one more time before you fire it in the kiln. So you can always correct errors and correct bits and pieces that you're not particularly happy with along the way. JM, hi Derek, thank you for this wonderful demonstration. I have a question. If you make a mistake, would you fire it and then reapply paint or paint on it before firing? Great question, JM. So what I'm suggesting is that when you're doing sgraffito like this, is you scratch out all of the image that you want, mistakes and all, and there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be areas that maybe you've taken out too much or you've lost the shape of something. So for example, my rose petal here is beginning to lose some of its shape because it's quite difficult to kind of scratch out everything that I need to do there. So what I'll do is after I've finished scratching the whole thing out, I'll get some paint mixed up on a palette, some just water, gum arabic, and paint with a very fine brush, and I will reapply the paint around the perimeter of the images to kind of redefine the images again before I fire them in the kiln. And you can do that as many times as you need to, scratching it back, repainting it in, scratching it back, repainting it in, until you get to something where you think, okay, I'm happy to fire that. Because the important thing is once you fire this paint, in the kiln, it's then permanent. It's on forever and a day. It won't come off. So do all your mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes. It's quite okay to make mistakes. Do all your mistakes before you fire it in the kiln, because once you fire it in the kiln, it's then permanent. So yeah, do as many repaints as you need to before you actually finish scratching out. So let me just create some more highlights here. Thanks, Julie. Jenna says, so you put it in for 600 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours? Yeah, we fired it up to temperature, Janice. It is normally fired 650 centigrade here in the UK, which I think is 1020 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you Google it, you can find out 650 degrees centigrade is about the firing temperature that you need. And I normally take it up to temperature as quick as it will go, Janice, and then I hold it at that temperature for, say, 10 minutes, and then switch the kiln off and let it cool down naturally. So unlike fusing and slumping, where you have to bring it up in stages and bring the temperature down in stages and hold it for, say, 2 hours, as you suggested here, with glass paint, you can literally take it up to temperature straight away, hold it for 10 minutes, and then switch it back off again. So, you know, it's a much quicker process when you're painting with glass paints. Yehuda says, do you fire, which temperature do you fire at? Yeah, 650 degrees centigrade. So have a look what the conversion of that is to Fahrenheit. Maybe somebody in chat will be able to tell us. Skip says, I have used a diamond tip Dremel to remove unwanted paint in a pinch. Yeah, great suggestion. If you can, I mean, if you have fired the paint on, you kind of braid it off. Sometimes you can use acids to remove paint as well, which I don't necessarily recommend, but certainly a Dremel, you can use a Dremel to begin to remove the paint without a doubt. Good suggestion there. Ideally, what you want to try and do, as I say, is to kind of think ahead and think, well, do I really want that piece fired in, or do I want to remove it? And if in doubt, remove it, take it off, because you can always add that piece of paint back in a subsequent firing. As I say, you can't just take that paint. Once you fired it in the kiln, you cannot come back to it and scratch it off a second time, because it is now permanently adhered to the glass surface at that stage. So you can see it's beginning to take shape a little bit. I'm going to keep working on this for a little while longer. Guys, do you have any more questions in chat this evening or this afternoon? 650 degrees centigrade is 1202 degrees Fahrenheit. Tegan, thank you so much. Okay, Yehudith, did you get that? Tegan has got us the Fahrenheit version, which is 1202 degrees Fahrenheit. Janice, that will be the temperature that you want to fire your paint at, up to 1202 degrees Fahrenheit, and hold it at that temperature. When your kiln reaches that temperature, hold it for about 10 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes, and then switch your kiln off, and your paint will hopefully be fired by that point. Jacob P says, my apologies if you've answered this already, just tuning in. What brand do you recommend for your glass paints and enamels? Great question, Jacob. So at the moment I'm working with the Reusch range of paints and enamels. Reusch is an American company owned by Schilling. They're really popular. They're great paints. They're really well ground down, talcum powder soft. And the supply chain for them here in the UK and in Europe is great, so you can usually get access to them. I've ordered 500 grams of black Reusch Tracing Black just yesterday, and it's coming tomorrow, so it's readily available here in the UK. I don't know where you're based, Jacob P, but yeah, Reusch paints are great. Another brand of paints is the French make Debutus. But again, it is a slightly coarser paint. It needs more grinding down. It's quite rough and sort of sandpaper-like. It does definitely need more grinding down. But the Reusch paints, if you can get hold of them, I don't know where in the world you are, but if you can get hold of Reusch Tracing Blacks, this is a Tracing Black. Rather than Best Black, there are a couple of different blacks available on the market. There's Best Black, which is a lead-free Reusch paint, which is great. But the one I use is the Tracing Black, which has got lead in it, because I find that the lead paints are still slightly more potent. Obviously wearing gloves and protecting yourself from things like dust, etc. are important when you're working with these paints. Jenna says, it reminds me of a scratch board. Yeah, I remember scratch boards when I was a kid as well. We used to have white like chalk base, and then there'd be like a black, almost like a wax on top, and you'd scratch it out to create your effects. I hear you talk about mica, and it's beautiful. EFO says, Skip, after your Dremel, do you put more paint on? Yeah, good question. I presume that is almost like working like a rubber, like an eraser, that the Dremel will remove the surface of the paint, and you can either fire it and polish fire it, putting it back into the kiln, because the paint, the Dremel will create a slightly sandblasted effect, and you might want to then do a kiln polish where you put it back into the kiln at 670 or 680 degrees, just to melt the glass a little bit to create a nice smooth glass finish. Then you can repaint on top of it again. Jacob says, I'm in the US, so the US is great, Jacob, for Reusch paints and enamels. You'll be able to get pretty much the whole range, I think, from Schilling, which is the parent company. If you Google Reusch paints and enamels, you'll find a great range of different types of different types of paints and stains and enamels from the Reusch brand. They're really, really excellent. Jacob says, fantastic, thank you so much. You're very welcome, Jacob. It's great that you're here. Thank you for joining us. This channel is for you. It's for all of you, the creatives out there who are interested to learn about stained glass. I'm here every Tuesday at 8:30 UK time to share with you and to just chat and to shoot the breeze and to chew the fat, all about stained glass. Let's just answer a few more questions before we end the stream today. It's now 20 minutes to 10. We started at 8:30, so we've been going a good while today. I'm really happy to do that and answer your questions. Tegan says, Skip, do you do anything to deal with the grinding marks, like polishing or fire polishing? Yeah, that's what I questioned as well. Skip, I'm imagining that there's going to be a few little marks left after you use the Dremel on the paint. I would suggest that you fire polish it, as Tegan has suggested as well, to get a nice glassy varnished finish before you apply more paint to it. What you tend to find is when you abrade glass with sandblaster or you abrade it with a Dremel drill, it almost makes the glass slightly porous. It doesn't really make it porous, but it creates lots of little micro pits that trap the glass powder, and it's very hard to control and to clean the glass properly because the paint is sitting in the pits and the the little divots and indentations that the Dremel creates. So sometimes doing a fire polish before you apply the paint again is the way forward. Julie says, it's becoming difficult here in the US to find Rausch paints. No problem, it seems, for enamels. Is that so, Julie? I didn't realize that. Because I'm based here in the UK, I'm not entirely sure what the American market is like, but it does surprise me, Julie, that you're finding it harder to find the Rausch paints. Maybe it's a temporary setback. I hope it's not a permanent situation. But do tell us, Julie, if you're finding that it is a permanent situation of difficulty finding the Rausch paints. I do hope it's not, because the Rausch paints are made stateside, so they should be relatively straightforward to get hold of. Jenna says, do you use it like ink with gum arabic? Yes, I do. How do you use mica? I bought Fromic pigment mica. I don't really use mica in my work, Janice. Mica powder tends to be used in acid etching, but I don't really use mica myself in my work. But yes, with this paint here that we've applied to create our Sgraffito background layer, it's a tracing black, Rausch tracing black mixed with water and gum arabic. You want enough gum arabic so that the paint really sticks to the surface of the glass, so when you start to scratch it off, it doesn't come off in big lumps, it stays in position and it allows you to be a little bit more nuanced in the way you create marks. Yehudith says, thank you. You're welcome, Yehudith. Thank you for being part of the stream today. I know it's getting late for you. You must be bedtime or close to bedtime for you now. Tegan says, Jacob Schilling seems to have a lot of Rausch paints back ordered right now, I believe. You can find smaller amounts at some retail places though if you Google. Is that right? That's really, that's strange. Schilling seem to have a lot of Rausch back orders, which means that they're not immediately fulfilling their orders and getting those paints back out to people. So that's interesting. I mean, it may be that we have to start stocking up a little bit more here in the UK if that's the case, because what happens stateside tends to get reflected here in the UK as well after a period of time. Tegan says, I also think Schilling might only be doing wholesale sales. Yeah, so I don't buy directly from Schilling, Tegan. I tend to buy from a glass supplier. So companies like Pearson's Glass here in the UK or Creative Glass Guild sell reasonable quantities of 25 grams or 50 grams of glass powder at a time. So it's useful amounts. You don't need to buy massive amounts. I imagine you're quite right, Tegan, that the Schillings, the wholesaler, might be selling wholesale amounts, larger quantities like a kilogram of paint at a time, which is quite a large amount. Jacob P says, Tegan, thanks for the heads up. Jerry Z says, I know a dealer for Schilling paints. Do you indeed? Do spill the beans, Jerry. Let us know in chat. Hoping it's temporary, says Julie. Yes, me too. Jerry Z says, thank you very much, Derek. You're welcome. Guys, I'm going to call it a day just now because it is now 10:15 in the evening here in the UK. And we've got a busy day tomorrow. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us. If it's your afternoon, enjoy the rest of your day. If it's late evening, enjoy your evening, sleep well, and we will talk again soon next Tuesday at 8:30 UK time. Can't wait to share more good stuff with you all. Thanks again for being part of the team, the creative team, the worldwide creative community. Spill the beans, T. Thanks, Derek. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good day to you guys. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.